edition of Dance Mama in Conversation. I'm really excited to be here today with Clare Halse, who is another dance mama who has recently starred in our film and really encapsulates what life is like for us dance mamas. And it's just so great to have this opportunity to talk to Clare and speak a little bit deeper about her experience becoming a parent within this whole context of working in the arts. And Clare is a very well-known musical theatre performer. Her list of credits is just astonishing and wonderful, and includes things, as you will see in the film, her role as Peggy Sawyer in 42nd Street, amongst many other just simply iconic roles and shows. And Clare, just welcome. It's great to be with you this morning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. So we're going to kick off in our usual way with just you being able to tell us a little bit more about the context in which you've become a parent recently.
Yes, so I had my baby girl, Mary, 9 months ago. So that felt like quite a big moment, actually, because she was, you know, that thing when you go, oh, she's been out as long as she was in.
Yeah.
But, the changes. But anyway, more of that later. So had her in May, and I live with my husband in Hertfordshire, Richard, who also works in the industry as a musician. And she was essentially a kind of lockdown baby, as they're being called, one of the little baby boomers. So I'd finished my last job in 2019. I'd worked over Christmas doing White Christmas. And then obviously lockdown happened not long after that in March, as we all know, 2020. And I was kind of really excited because I was going into Hello Dolly in the coming June, and I was thrilled with the role I'd been given. I was cast as Minnie Fay, and it was all very exciting. But then obviously that started to transpire that the lockdown wasn't just 2 weeks, as we all know, it just went on and on. So instead, I fell pregnant. So, you know, there was something else lovely happened in my life. And then that lockdown year obviously was kind of filled with the excitement of being pregnant. And, you know, when it's your first one, and it's a lockdown, you've got all this time to think about it and enjoy it. And yeah, I really enjoyed my pregnancy. And then Mary came in May 2021.
Oh, fabulous. Oh, so lovely. So you're kind of right in those kind of that first year where it's totally different. And I think the shift between life before and life afterwards is huge, isn't it? It's really indescribable in lots of ways, or as much as we trying to do it to help people understand. And sort of tell me a little bit more about your experience with that.
Yeah, it is massive. It's so life-changing. And yeah, I remember my sister-in-law kind of laughing at me when I was pregnant, because she was like, ha, ha, you have no idea what's to come. And you like you say, everyone tries to describe, you know, how it's going to be, but until you've got this tiny human in front of you, and you're home from the hospital, especially that first week. I ended up with a long labor and then a C-section, and it wasn't what I'd planned, you know, in my head. What I'd wanted to happen was obviously, I wanted a natural birth and everything. So I got home that first week, and you're still kind of reeling from what's happened in the hospital, but you can't, because you've got this tiny little human that's so fragile. And it was just overwhelming that first week. And Mary was 2 weeks late as well. So my husband, we were coming out of lockdown, as we know, in that May 2021. So my husband was going back to a job, and the nature of our industry is that he couldn't really take paternity leave at that point, because, you know, we hadn't worked for so long. So he had to go back in. So luckily I had mum and sister on hand to come over in that first week. And then suddenly we're 9 months later, and yeah, I can't believe 9 months has gone by. But at the same time, it's now it's just kind of everything, you know, this first year is such quick changes with the baby, and yeah, it's like you say, it's just huge, and every week is different. But now I've definitely kind of relaxed into it a little bit, and I just think the first bit is definitely the hardest.
Do you think your approach to your pregnancy and your point of view is quite different because you're a performer and you've had that background in discipline and training? Have you found that your perception of it is quite different to other mums you've met who don't work in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think I'm so happy that I had that background, and that specifically dance was such a big part of my life, because I just carried on dancing and teaching throughout my pregnancy over Zoom, of course. So I've got a little cottage, and yeah, I carried on teaching in a tiny space with my big bump, doing kind of lyrical jazz on Zoom, for a local dance school, and some tap workshops, things like that. And I feel like it gave me a kind of a joy throughout my pregnancy as well. And I loved the fact that I had this little human on board, and we were dancing together. And I also think your approach to your fitness when you're pregnant, to your diet, I'm sure lots of people have a good awareness of it, but you know, we do have that kind of extra awareness of our bodies and keeping them nice and healthy when you're pregnant. And I think that really helped. Yeah,
I think what is so fabulous is you're absolutely right, is the keeping moving and working, that we know from Active Pregnancy Foundation's work with the CMO, or Chief Medical Officer, that there's now guidelines into how many hours you should be doing or can do to stay active during your pregnancy. But also, by doing that, and again, hats off to everybody who pivoted and went on Zoom during the lockdowns, because that in itself is a huge achievement. Is not only were you role modeling for those young people and all your participants during that time of crisis, but as a pregnant person, you're also being a role model and showing them that that is possible to do whilst you're working in the performing arts sector, which is huge. And I think now, hopefully, with more role models, the generations coming through will be able to see it as second nature, as a possibility, rather in previous generations, even the current generation, it being much more of a challenge or not possible.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember when I sort of fell pregnant, and I didn't kind of put it all over my social media or anything. And then when I told some friends, they're like, "Oh, you kept that quiet." And I think, if I'm completely honest, at first it was like, what if you know, everyone sees I'm pregnant, and then they won't want to employ, like at the very base level, what if they won't want me anymore when I come out the other side of it? And actually, since having Mary, like and when you guys approached about the little film you've done and everything, I was like so proud that I'm a mother now. And I just felt like, yes, I want to show people that, you know, you can be a mother and you can still, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not there yet, I'm not fit yet, and I'm just taking my time with it, but I want to show people that you can have a baby, and you can also, you know, still dance and still get back to it and dance when you're pregnant. And yeah, I think at first I was worried that people would see me differently, you know, with having a baby. But actually, when you come out the other side of it, you think, oh, I am different, but I'm quite proud of kind of, you know, I've made human life, like I can do anything.
Well, as Mark Baldwin said to me, hello Mark, if you're listening, the ultimate creative act, which was just such a nice thing to hear from somebody in that role at the time. But you're absolutely right. And I think what is the huge challenge we're trying to overcome now is having more support for people and understanding as they go through the process, to know how to manage the changes in the body. But understandably, that fear comes from 2,000 years of patriarchy, but also the reality of, up until this moment in time, for lots of people, it has meant the end of their career, or they haven't been employed. And they're, unfortunately, the terrible statistic which really fuels our fire recently from Parents in Performing Arts campaign is that sort of just about 7 out of 10 of parents and carers across music, theatre and dance are considering leaving their careers because the pressures are too great, and there's so many odds stacked against us in terms of the culture itself in the industry. There's still, for a lot of people, seeing a pregnant dancer or being in the company of parents is very alien and not even on their radar as a concept.
Yeah.
So that to get over, as well as the even more external kind of feminist and working parent challenge issues of the system, particularly childcare, does not work for our industry at all, because all the childcare is usually during the day, not in the evening, and costs a lot of money. So there's that hurdle to get over. But then also us as people is the psychological and physiological factors. And what we're hoping to do through the research that we're doing is kind of track where people are at in this population in terms of things like diastasis recti, or where your stomach muscles come apart during pregnancy and are slow to come back together, forward head or kyphosis from feeding and carrying, or the back issues that can then happen, changes in the pelvis, whether it's things like pubis symphysis, or I had a particular issue carrying my daughter on my left hip, so I could be busy and efficient with the right hand, and twisting my pelvis. Lots of things like this where we can capture some data around that and then start to build some better and more animated way of supporting people through that process so they can get back quicker. But also we're working with One Dance UK quite closely in identifying practitioners on the Healthier Dancer Practitioners Register who have got pre and postnatal experience, which really help people across the country try and, although they'll still have to pay for it, and that is, you know, another challenge is the financial aspect of it, but at least they'll be able to identify good quality help nearby. Because I don't know, and it'd be interesting to ask you about your experience with your GP and midwife, because for a lot of people in our sector there's still a misunderstanding or not quite aligning with the knowledge of what we have to go through, almost similar to elite athletes and sports women, with just general practitioners and midwives. And at times my anatomical knowledge of my body, I could see, could make my midwife a bit cross of, oh, I think you know more than me, do you?
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, talk to me on a level, because I could try and understand, and I'm much more aware of things perhaps than people who don't work with their bodies closely for their job. And
it's really
for you.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it's made me think of one of my checkups where she was checking for I hope I say this right, the diastasis recti that you just talked about. And so like you say, dance, we've got a lot of awareness. During the lockdown I did my Pilates teacher training, so I've been doing a lot, you know, about our core and all the muscles and how they work and everything. And she kind of felt, and she said, oh yeah, you've got a gap there, but it's not quite bad enough for you to go to physio. And that was kind of it. And I thought in my head, oh, I should know what to do because of this training I've had, and I sort of do. But actually looking back, I wish I'd said, well, no, can I have the physio and a bit more help with it, and all the knowledge that you can get is going to help you. And that's why actually when I went on the Dance Mama website and there's a whole article about it, I was like, oh great, just a little bit more knowledge on top of what I already know will help me to recover them. And I've been doing hopefully the right sorts of things over time, and I'll try and do more. But yeah, sometimes I think I wish I'd spoken up a bit more in my midwife appointments, because like you say, we do have a tiny bit of extra knowledge sometimes, and it's good to say. So you know, anyone else, if you want to speak up in your midwife appointments, I'd say it and just get a little bit more information, because I kind of came away thinking, oh, I have got a gap, and then I can feel it myself, and I should have got more from her, really, I think.
I think well, one, thank you so much, because I'm so pleased. That article that Neve Morin wrote, she'll be thrilled to hear that. That has really helped, because I had the same thing both times, and it's still quite, I feel quite slow, in something you always have to keep working on.
Yeah.
To try and work cross-laterally, but also kind of moving your head around from where you've been used to doing sit-ups, and knowing that will really help and work deeply. That having to try and change to more focusing cross-laterally again is a huge shift from having, I know, over a decade or more of working in one particular way.
Yeah.
But like you say, understanding, well, how big a gap is too big a gap, and what's the right gap, and actually working with Neve myself, understanding that it's the quality of the fascia between the gap as well, which is important for us to kind of increase the tone of, because lo and behold, when you're in a, I don't know, kick line, or you're doing a développé or lifting your leg, it's that those stomach muscles that really are going to help hold the height. And that is, again, can be quite a slow process into getting into that space. And for me as well, finding the time to put in to support that. Again, if you're not in a company and you're freelance, it's relying on you and your resilience and tenacity to do that. And quite frankly, as I disclosed to Claire before we started recording, a great night's sleep last night, and that really puts you off. You know, you're tired. The last thing you'll be doing is like, getting the mat out and like, you know, it's difficult. But then connecting with other people in a similar situation then really helps. And because then you realize, oh, it's not just me, you know, other people are finding this as well. And then you can start to get out of your own head and move forward. But again, that doesn't always come with the social contact that you get in baby groups, because not everybody in the baby group has had a glittering musical theatre and continuing career, and will think, yeah, have another cup of tea and don't be doing sit-ups. What are you doing, you know? But you're like, but this is actually my job. It's quite a real challenge. And by sharing your experiences and continuing, you know, through pregnancy and beyond, it's a real beacon for other people to see it is hard, but it is possible. And as we keep moving forward, we're learning more, you know.
Yeah.
So kind of where you're at now, do you have a sense of when you might want to re-enter the workspace? Or, and it's fine if you might not, that's totally cool.
I definitely don't have a kind of really clear cut plan, but I do have kind of, I know I had one audition back, and kind of dipped my toe back in the water, and I was quite nervous about it. And actually when I did dip my toe back in, I was like, oh, the want and the kind of like the fire, whatever you want to say, is still there. I just loved it, and I'm so glad that I had that little taster. So basically I'm not, like I say, Mary's 9 months old, and I still kind of feel like I'm in that, she doesn't really quite sleep through the night yet. I'm still breastfeeding, and I haven't really done a lot of the kind of expressing and stuff, but I'm very kind of open to doing that if a job came in and I needed to. And I'm lucky that I've got my mum that would help and all this kind of thing. So I'm kind of in my head thinking that I'll get to Mary being a year, and then I'm hoping that, and my agent's been super supportive, and I kind of said to him that I'm thinking I'll have the year with Mary, continue to breastfeed her, and then hopefully maybe you could start submitting for me for things, and I can start auditioning again, basically, and seeing how it would work. At the right now, I'm thinking an 8-show week would be quite hard, but then I look at, I've got lots of inspiring friends that are mums, who are at that point, and they're, you know, one of my best friends is, her little girl's 3, and she's doing Mary Poppins, she's doing an 8-show week, she's being an amazing mum to Lola still. So I'm kind of like, I know it's possible, and I know there's lots of options. Hopefully, you know, if something a little shorter contract came in that I could, you know, potentially do alongside having married. Yeah, I think I'm quite, as you can tell,
Yeah,
quite wishy-washy, but I'm hoping that things will happen.
not at all. I think it's really healthy to have lots of options available and think quite openly about it, because again, there's a real difference between the absolute laser focus you have beforehand, and then now you've got another priority in the mix. The openness is really key into organically finding your way through it and working out what's right for you. And I think never before in any kind of medical situation had I been required to tap into my intuition as to when I became a parent. But actually our spidey senses on being a parent are really helpful. And I think that again, there's a real tension between knowing the demands and all this kind of pressure over here of the culture of it, but trying to turn the volume down on that to really tune into what works best for you. Because absolutely, becoming a parent has given, like, superpowered you into even more emotional resources and physical knowledge, and deepening all of that understanding and that richness. But when you next come to expressing a role, whether that's through singing or acting or dancing or however, you're so much the richer for it. And what I really hope the movement, if we can call it that, is helping to do is helping people who don't have children, who are in key decision making positions, see that value. Because with so many people leaving, there is a real talent hemorrhage, and I don't say that lightly. It's very dramatic of me, but there is. It's huge. And you think of all of the hours and time and experiences you've had, that's really valuable. And hopefully, and we're seeing more and more now, that is being seen as valuable, is actually adding to the creativity and the artistry. Women are being supported, like you say, in major roles, or some are having job shares on and off stage. We're seeing some now stage management teams being able to support that, because there's all that kind of niche knowledge.
And like you say, when you see it as well, they, like, a lot of women that have got children or have had more experience, a bit older maybe, there's something extra about them on the stage. Like, they've got this depth, like you say, that's really inspiring. And what was it I saw over lockdown? There was the Chichester Festival theatre production of South Pacific, and they had a shared role, and I think one was pregnant and one was a mother. It was absolutely amazing. She did the whole performance with this tiny bump, and I just thought, oh, wow, there's someone, she's going to be a mum like me. At the time I was sat there with my bump and I was thinking, she's doing it. And, you know, lots of women might not have felt that they could do it pregnant, which is fine too, but seeing someone like that going for it, and like you say, the idea of job shares as well, like, I love that idea. And one of the kind of pioneers of that was in musical theatre was a girl I did 42nd Street with, Charlene Ford. And she shared the role, and she'd had a little baby. She came back, and I just thought, oh, how amazing would that be if more shows did that? And I know it is hard, like, you know, having 2 sets of costumes, understudies, all that kind of thing. It is hard for producers, but if there is a show where they can do that and it's not too difficult, I think, what a brilliant idea. I'd love that. I'd love to share it with someone and know that you could have a bit of time with your baby. And like in a lot of other worlds, you can go back a few days a week as you're building up. It would be brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so wonderful that it's the visibility, isn't it? You have seen somebody else doing it. You know it's possible. You've got other people around you that you are also seeing can do it, and that really helps bolster you on. But I think as well, there's something around and coming from a contemporary dance background, what we then see is like less female choreographers, or we have done. There are more of them now, but again, for the same reasons. And then there's a whole piece around what's being communicated, how representative is that to the audience that you've got. And let's face it, quite a lot of the audience for musical theatre and dance is also women. And that again, how everything has a knock-on effect with everything else.
Yeah.
Scale is, this feels like this issue is really key in helping the whole ecosystem move on, you know, be 21st century proof. I also think as well, and you might find this going back, like you say, that fire you had when you did your audition recently, is because, you know, you've only got a contained pocket of time for other things, you know, running in the background. The energy you give in that moment is, I think, a lot greater. You become much more efficient. You really give. But then the challenge is balancing that with the culture of overgiving that has, and expectation around that, and creating some, again, healthy boundaries and transitions through those boundaries, because sometimes there might be a work hangover when you get to pick up and your mind is on, and vice versa. And those sorts of practices as well, which are less sciencey and academic, I think are key to keep reminding women to help again mentally to be really, really fit for that. But again, we can lean into those characteristics of discipline and organisation that we have. Talking to Bethany, so you might want to watch that episode as well. You know, she talks about laying her breakfast out the night before she's going into work, and it's almost like a props table, isn't it? You kind of know you need, and same with the nappy bag. You need the bag, you need the milk bottle, you know, Sudocrem, first aid kit, hairband.
Yes, oh my gosh,
hairband in there, all these sorts of things. And I think generally I'm generalizing here, but we tend to be the mums as well in the group who will always have more than one nappy. The preparation of having everything laid out is so ingrained. Brilliant traits we can have as
definitely. I mean, I can't lie, I'm not the most organized, but I think like you say, if I had to snap into that, I would, because you do, you know, like you say, when, for example, that audition, as it's something I've got, you know, of a recent experience, I was quite surprised how I could snap into that world. Like literally, you know, left the house, and it was one of the first time I'd left Mary and gone into London for quite a while, and you're so in that baby world, you know, getting her ready, and, you know, telling I think it was my mum that day, because I think Rich was away, you know, where the food was, you know, where the baby stuff was, all this kind of thing. And then you turn up at that audition and something in your head just goes boom, and I knew I had to focus in on learning the routine, and I was thinking, is my brain going to work in this way anymore? And it was a little rusty, but it still did, you know, I could just feel something boom, and the energy, like you say, that I had to give, because I thought, you know, I've got this bit of time away from Mary, and I could kind of use the joy that she gave me, and you know, all that lovely stuff that she'd given me for the last 9 months. I could kind of use that in the audition, and also know what a lovely thing that I could leave that audition, and whereas I would have used to spend the evening kind of probably replaying it and thinking about it, there wasn't time for that, because just get home and you're like, okay, bath, bedtime, dinner, you know. And I thought, actually, there's something really nice about using that energy that you've got to give to your little person in the audition or in your job, when eventually, hopefully, that comes for me.
And you're absolutely right. It's kind of, you don't waste time anymore. That doesn't happen, you know, because it's not there to kind of you know, get into the ruminating, oh god, did that go well kind of space, because you just, which is really quite helpful in
Yeah. And I'm hoping I've kind of lost a few of my inhibitions as well. I don't know this until I get back into a rehearsal room, but I think maybe becoming a mother, like you say, something changes in you. You're a bit, maybe hopefully a little bit more brave when I'm in the rehearsal room, because that was always something I wanted to be better at, was really just being brave enough to like offer up ideas in the room and speak out. And it was always my thing that I was like, I need to work on that, to be braver and offer up more things without worrying so much about what everyone would think. And I'm kind of hoping that when I do get back in the rehearsal room, that kind of has changed a bit for me, just becoming a mother. And like you say, having that sense of, you know, I've got this bit of time to use, I'm going to use it well, because that's how we work now, you know.
Yeah. And I think just the process of giving birth, using the dancer brain of, it's not a routine, it's not a set technique exercise, same as birth, it's an improv exercise. And when you kind of, that was a helpful shift for me to kind of move more into that space, not just in terms of birth, but also just in terms of trying to manage everything. And again, something I still struggle with on a daily basis is the trying to control or do things in a certain way, and then, you know, mom or something else happens. But kind of finding ways to combat that. Post-it notes everywhere. You know, and kind of going a bit more with the flow. And I think that actually relaxes you and opens you up to more opportunities and possibilities that you might not have necessarily seen before, because you're so focused.
That's it's such an interesting way of putting it, because I totally connect to that. I thought, you know, I'm quite I can do anything. I can give birth. And I was like, you know, it'll be this. I've done my hypnobirthing. I'll breathe. I'll do all the things they said. It'll happen like they've said. And it didn't. So now, like you say, it's kind of taught me that things won't necessarily be as you planned, and that's okay. And just go with the flow, and every day is different. And hopefully within performing as well, that will help. I hope.
Have you, sort of to round us off, have you got any advice for anybody who's in a similar situation to you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like I'm kind of like learning as I go. But I think if I was to try and give advice, maybe it would be that whilst we do see a lot of women, and it's so inspiring, like we say, when you see ladies that have gone straight back into work, and you're like, wow, it's okay if you're like me and you're still at 9 months and your ambition's still there and your fire and your want, and, you know, I am going to go back, but just knowing that it's okay, that you don't have to have your six-pack back straight away, or be totally fit straight away. That's okay as well. Do you know what I mean? I want to make sure that everyone that on their journey, that sort of is kind to themselves and takes their time to get back to where they want to be, whatever that journey is for you, if you know what I mean. Because I think I just thought it would be so quick, and I just imagined that I'd go straight away to either being really fit or to going back to auditions. And I think, yeah, go with your steps, but don't lose your love of what you do as well. And I do my teaching twice a week, do my tap teaching, and that kind of keeps my love of dance going. And then hopefully when I'm ready and to go for my auditions again, I'll be in the right place. I hope that makes sense.
It absolutely makes perfect sense. And I think the key thing is everybody's journey and experience is so unique, which doesn't make it easy on the academic trying to analyze. But absolutely, and really, yeah, being okay with that. And you'll see, like you say, I thought I would go back. I thought I would be doing some presenting at Move It 3 months in, which didn't happen because I was breastfeeding. I didn't really fully comprehend exactly what that would mean for me.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. You know, it's kind of trying to, as much as possible, let a little bit go of the expectation and really just focus on yourself. And that's very difficult to do in this day and age with social media and all, you know, all of that kind of stuff. but also just naturally in our industry that's quite hard. But
Mm.
but no, sort of trust that will lead you to the right things that are going to feel good when you're in them, and then when they feel good, you'll be performing at your best, and it will all kind of come together.
Yeah, and also I think then one of my friends who's gone back to work, a different friend who did my pregnancy yoga all the way through on Zoom, she's gone back and she said actually it kind of, the joy that she gets from now being back in performing, it reflects back at her little girl as well. It kind of, because she's happy in that world, when she's with her little girl, she's got all that excitement that she's back in the performing. It kind of reflects back on her little girl as well, which I thought was so lovely.
Yeah, and they're both kind of, they're reflexive, aren't they? One feeds the other, and
that's it.
You know, the old adage, happy mummy, happy baby. But we're quite a different breed in that our fulfillment comes from an artistic pursuit that is so part of our identity as well, and it's something that is very hard to switch off for a reason, in that it's part of our purpose, that we're multi-purpose.
Yeah, and usually it's been our whole life. And then you have a baby and there's this huge change, but actually it's a lifetime of work. So, you know, it's sad if people don't go back in some way or choose to use what they've got in some way in the future. I hope that whatever I do, I always use all the skills that I've built up over time in some purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Claire, that is such a lovely way to round off our conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been one of those conversations where time just stands still, doesn't it? The guidance, advice, and being so open with your experience through our film, but also talking more in depth now, is really going to inspire other people. And just thank you so much, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you for having me.